Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. It is Monday night, which means I've got a list of topics that I'm bringing to you, and I'm going to rant about them. It's a little something we call Nothing But Rants, a little NBR tonight. And tonight's a little bit uncommon. It's a little bit different of a show. I think for the last calendar year, I've done nothing but come on in front of the camera and talk about the University of Georgia. If you could just roll me down just a little bit on the mixer, just a tad bit, not a lot. Boom, that's good right there. Sorry, we're trying out some new things over here tonight. But anyways, including in those new things is tonight's not strictly Georgia. Most of the time, we only talk Georgia football. Now, we might talk some SEC news that's relative to Georgia football. But tonight, I thought, look, we're amidst greatness right now, guys. Everybody knows we are. And if you let something like last night go by on a topic or on a show like this without actually going into it and talking about it, I feel like you're doing a disservice. Especially if you got strong opinions about it, which I do. I have very strong opinions about this exact topic, which is Tom Brady. Last night, I thought we saw some things that cemented. I mean, his legacy was filled out, right? His Hall of Fame ballot has been filled out. It's been ready to go into Canton for years at this point. But now it's about what conversations did he just elevate himself into? And that's one we're going to get into tonight. And meanwhile, I'm going to tie it all in to the University of Georgia. Believe it or not, I will get back and tie all of these things into what it means for Georgia, what we saw last night, what that means for the University of Georgia moving forward. And we'll start with Tom Brady's leadership. Look, I've always been one of these guys that, I know leadership's important. I've always known leadership's important, especially on a team-oriented sport, things like that. But I'll be 100% honest with you. I've always just assumed that the team with the better players and the team that's just better is likely and, more oftentimes than not going to win the football game, right? They're going to win the basketball game. They're going to win whatever sporting event they're playing. The team with the better players, more oftentimes than not, wins when it comes to team sports. To me, Tom Brady's changed all of that. He's taken that argument, balled it up, and thrown it away. Because talent-wise, everybody's, for years at this point, for about 2.5 years, has been terrified of the Kansas City Chiefs and the level of talent that they provide. Just a little bit more. Pay attention to our audio levels over there, Lord of the Dings. But anyways, so, the talent level was superior, if not, even better with Kansas City last night. So it wasn't about talent last night. That team that showed up last night for Tampa Bay was all about, how well prepared they were and how well they executed and how much confidence in which they played with, which again tells me that leadership's never been more important, especially in professional sports, but really in college sports as well. Over the last 20 years, the Tampa Bay Bucks have been not necessarily a laughingstock, but they've been pitiful. They've been downright awful for a long time. Over the last 2 decades, the last 20 years, the Tampa Bay Bucks have only won more than 10 games 3 times. 3 seasons out of 20, they've gone, won more than 10 games. They've won over half of their games, basically. They've been a perennial kind of laughingstock in the NFC South. It's always been about the Falcons. It's always been about the New Orleans Saints. And for a couple of years, it was about the Carolina Panthers when Cam Newton was there. Tom Brady shows up, and all of a sudden they're Super Bowl winning champs. Oh, but they must have had a much different football team, Brooks. Wrong. 8 of 11 starters on the offensive side of last night's Super Bowl, 8 of the 11 starters were on that football team last year. They were on a 7-9 football team last year. They were there. 9 of 11 starters on the defensive side of the football, they were there last year. They were all there. Same exact coaching staff. Offensive coordinator, Brian Leftwich, was there. Todd Bowles, defensive coordinator, was there. Bruce Arians, head coach, was there. It's the same exact course, the same exact nucleus. There's been one major change, and it's Tom Brady. It's absolutely Tom Brady. And I know we're talking about the obvious right now, right? It may seem like something obvious, but Tom Brady was a constant when he was in New England. We didn't know what it was going to be when he left. Most people went to Twitter or went to wherever they were, went to whatever their platform was, and talked about how, Tom can't do it without Bill. Tom can't do it without Bill. We'll see. This reminds me a lot of the Joe Montana going to Kansas City. This reminds me a whole lot of, Michael Jordan going to the Wizards, which we might talk about a little bit later. But that's what everybody was talking about. Oh, this is, this ain't going to be no ride off into the sunshine or, ride off into the sunset. This is Brett Favre with the New York Jets, not with the Minnesota Vikings, yada, yada, yada. They proved all that wrong. 77% of that roster in Tampa was identical a year ago, 7-9. Identical, same exact coach staff, 7-9. I don't know exactly what it is. I can't quantify it. I can't give you an exact definition or label on what it is that Tom Brady's got. But what you can say and what you do know now is that Tom Brady can walk into an organization filled with a bunch of haven't done it yets and take them to a Super Bowl and have them play exceptionally well in the Super Bowl. And a lot of people are going to say, well, yeah, that's about the defense, Brooks, and the defense played great, and they did. And we'll talk about it here in a second, about how it ties into Georgia and what Georgia can maybe learn from what Tampa's defense did. But the defense was pretty good last year too, and they played with a whole lot more confidence this year, not only because they knew their quarterback wasn't going to throw 35 million interceptions like Jameis Winston did last year. Sure, that helps. It helps your confidence levels a lot going into a football game, but this is a whole different kind of level of confidence what these guys are talking about. I found this quote, and I think it ties in great to what we're talking about right here. And it says, quote, "Greatness can be contagious, but you first must come in contact with it." Okay? Greatness can rub off on you, but you got to rub into it. You got to bump into it. There's a bunch of great football players on that Tampa Bay roster. Levante David is a future Hall of Famer in the NFL at the linebacker position. That's a fact. The career says it. Okay? His running mate, Devin White from LSU, great linebacker. Got a defensive line that's loaded. I felt like Vita Vea doesn't get near as much credit for what he was doing. Obviously, Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul, great football players. That back end played phenomenal. Antoine Winfield Jr. just might be the best young safety in the NFL. At least he's played like it throughout the playoffs. It was a very loaded defense and a very talent-laden defense and a talent-laden offense, but the pieces weren't all there until Tom Brady showed up. The confidence wasn't all there until Tom Brady showed up. The perfection in execution day in and day out wasn't there until Tom Brady showed up. And even when he did get there, it took off a little slow, right? Bruce Arians trying to run the offense that he wants to drive the ball down the field, wants to take shots, wants to do all that stuff. Well, about midway through the season, it was clear and evident. Brady walked into the office and said, hey, look, I love the offense, and I think it's great. And we need to keep some of the identity there and mold it with what I want to do. But what I want to do is win some Super Bowls. Okay, it's won a lot of them. It's won 6 of them, matter of fact. So maybe we should do something that I want to do just a little bit. And he had his input, and impact, and he had his handprint on the offense too. So all of it was about Brady. All of it. 7-9 Super Bowl champs. Okay, yeah, they added Jason Pierre-Paul this offseason. They added Julio Brown or Antonio Brown. They added, Gronk. They added all these guys, but most of them were on the waiver wire. Leonard Fournette on the waiver wire. The entire NFL had an opportunity to sign Leonard Fournette. Tampa Bay picks him up, and then he goes through the playoffs and just ravages people. Okay, playoff Lenny. A lot of that has to do with the quarterback getting him in the right play all the time. Okay, I guarantee if you talk to Leonard Fournette, he had the best, finish to a season of his career because of some of the things Tom's doing. Some of the ability to control at the line of scrimmage, to give him confidence, right? That's all in him. This ties into Georgia in this way. And I think we started the show with leadership because it's vital to the game of football. It makes people play a lot harder. It makes them play with a lot more confidence. Makes them even play with better execution a lot of the times. If they've got somebody in that huddle that knows everything, right, could correct them on the fly and do things like that. But, Kirby Smart has always said, and you always hear him talk about how his best leaders on his football team, they're his best players. If his best players are his best leaders, he's got a good football team. It is quite literally the number one coaching cliche that there is about leadership. The best teams are player-led football teams. Coaches ain't got to say nothing. They ain't got to go in there and tell people they got to work out harder. They ain't got to tell people they got to condition harder. They don't, because players are holding them accountable. Why is that tie into Georgia? Well, unfinished business. That's how that ties into Georgia. Georgia's got more seniors coming back than ever before. 2017, about the same. Okay, and y'all know what happened in 2017. All right, so the senior and upper class leadership at Georgia right now is as strong as ever. That's vital. Extremely vital for a football team that has the aspirations that Georgia does in 2021. So that's first of all. Secondly, it's what makes this year so crucial for Georgia. Got better player-led leadership than Kirby Smart's had in 3 or 4 years. And they matched it and paired it with the talent. It's deep, right? Yeah, I know we can talk about corners all day, but a great leadership program will get that stuff ironed out pretty quickly. Furthermore, tie-ins in terms of what last night meant to me for Georgia, just watching it and observing it. We've talked on this show about how I personally think Georgia needs to get out of, man-to-man just a little bit. They don't really have, obviously, the corners to be playing it right now. They're young. They're inexperienced. We also talked about how I don't know how they're going to line up in a traditional 4-2-5 set that they've been rolling around with this year because, again, they don't have Azeez Ojulari on this roster anymore. They don't have a true edge setter. They don't have a guy out there that can put his hand down and play a true defensive end position just yet. We haven't seen Adam Anderson do it. We haven't seen Nolan Smith do it. We dang sure haven't seen McCall Sherman do it. Okay, Chaz Chambliss, rookie, freshman, right? Hadn't been on the field yet. We haven't seen anybody do what we've seen Georgia have at the jack position the last couple of years, so they need to get away from it. Well, how do you get away from it, Brooks? How do you get away from doing what you do best, doing what you've done best over the last couple of years? Well, Todd Bowles, in his history, is known as a 4-2-5, man-to-man, blitz-heavy football team. That sound a little familiar? It should. It should sound familiar because that's exactly what Georgia's profile is as a defense. That's what they do. They like to bring unidentifiable pressure on third down. They love to play man-to-man. They want to stay in nickel. They want to stay 4-2-5. That's what they want to be in. Well, Tampa wanted to stay in 4-2-5, wanted to play man-to-man, wanted to blitz the heck out of every quarterback they ever played. Well, they ran up against a juggernaut, or what they thought was a juggernaut on film, in the Kansas City Chiefs. So what do? They walked out there and they say, yeah, we'll stay in this 4-2-5 shell. We might go 3-4 traditional, which is what our roster, our depth chart says we are, but we play as a 4-2-5. We might do a little bit more traditional 3-4 stuff, but what we're going to do is we're going to drop back. We're going to play zone. We're going to play 100% zone almost all night long until we feel comfortable. And while we're playing zone, we're going to get after the quarterback with 4. Okay? We're going to have a dominant nose tackle in Vita Vea that nobody can stop in a bull rush. I don't care if I got 2 or 3 guys in the middle holding Vita Vea. They can't get him to stop creating pressure up the middle. Which, if you guys watched last night's game, all Pat Mahomes was doing was bailing out of the pocket. Why was he bailing out of the pocket? Well, it's because Shaq and JPP was getting after him. Shaquille Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul were really getting after Brooks. Yeah, well, that's partly true. It is partly true. But the main reason was he couldn't step up in the pocket. There was no pocket. Vita Vea was already collapsing it right off the line of scrimmage. So first things first, you got to have a defensive tackle or a defensive nose tackle that can really push the pocket. Jordan Davis fits that bill. Devontae Wyatt fits that bill. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins moving forward fits that bill. Tyree West moving forward fits that bill. They've got it moving forward in terms of the interior defensive line prospects that they know they can get after it and play powerful football, pushing the pocket up front, and not really worry about sacks. Worry about flushing the quarterback out because he can't step up. So they got that solved. Now, what they need is a big, long, physical pass rusher. I believe they have that, like JPP, 6'5", 300 pounds, freak athlete. Well, that sounds pretty familiar. Trayvon Walker, 100%, that dude. Then they got another guy, Shaquille Barrett, who's about 6'2", 6'3", 245, 250 pounds, and can really bend the edge. Well, I firmly believe Georgia's got 2 of those guys. They got Nolan Smith and Adam Anderson that can get that. They can fit that bill as a speed rusher, as a guy who's, number one priority is to get after the quarterback. They've got that in their stable. Can they play disruptive zone defense? I don't know that. I didn't know that about Tampa, though. I didn't know that about Tampa before last night, and they came out and they did it. So I think we learned a couple of things. You can play havoc-creating defense out of a 4-2-5 zone defense. It can be done. It was just done against the greatest quarterback in the game, who we all believe. I think that's what we all believe. Right, Lord of the Rings? Is that what you believe? Pat Mahomes, greatest quarterback in the game right now. Okay? We all believe it. They shut him down last night with that right there, getting pressure with 4 and dropping back into zone. And occasionally, when things are completely unexpected, like 3rd and long out of nowhere, bring a double corner blitz and dropping back linebackers into a soft shell. You can do all that at Georgia. You've got the athletes to do all that at Georgia. It's just about whether or not you'll be adaptable like Todd Bowles was Sunday night. It's just about whether or not you can change your identity to fix whatever holes or flaws or problems that the opponent creates. That can be done. So I thought perfectly last night that Tampa showed the blueprint, not just to stop Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes, it's not uncommon to run across a dynamic weapon at the tight end position and a really shifty wide receiver at the slot or out on the outside. like Tyreek Hill, right? It's not uncommon to find that in the SEC. You don't have to look much further than last year with Florida, right? Florida lit Georgia's butt up, lit them up. And for the better part of most of the football game, Georgia didn't get out of man-to-man defense. They really didn't. They didn't really adjust too much. They didn't do too many fire zones or anything like that. They pretty much played what they played and moved forward. Mix a little cover three in there every once in a while, which we know Kirby Smart likes to do. But never, ever was it going into a game knowing, well, we're short in the back end, which Tampa was. Tampa was banged up and had guys that didn't even practice all week, basically, in that back end. Just like against Florida, Georgia had guys banged up in the back end, okay? Instead of going out and play man-to-man like they had all year, they dropped back in zone. They adapted. I haven't seen that level of drastic adaptation on Georgia's defense and a commitment to creating havoc out of zone. Now, the creating havoc out of zone, there's no excuse for not being able to do it. Okay, you got an all-off season to build in zone concepts, to get guys good at zone concepts. I understand that week in, week out, it's really, really hard to just completely revamp your defensive identity. Okay, it doesn't happen in college football because you're playing Alabama one week, Kentucky the next. I understand that. Whereas in the Super Bowl, Todd Bowles had 2 weeks to completely change his defense. I get that, but got a whole off season, baby. Got a whole off season to get good at zone coverage and creating havoc in zone coverage and being able to add a variety of blitz packages like what Tampa was doing against Kansas City last night, completely flabbergasting one of the best quarterbacks that we've seen in recent memory. And I do believe moving forward, he's going to continue to be great, but that is what it is. Okay, so a couple of tie-ins from last night from Kansas City and Tampa Bay. One, leadership. I'm 100% bought in on it. Again, I used to think it was Jimmy's and Joe's, right? It's about how many great players do you have on one team? Yeah, team-oriented concepts. Are they an actual team? Do they play hard together? All that good stuff, that's fine. But last night showed me that a 43-year-old who is the best leader we've ever seen, I believe, personally, in professional football, can take a group of 7 and 9 football players who are a bunch of haven't done it yet and take them to a Super Bowl and win that Super Bowl and play exceptionally well throughout that Super Bowl and have rookies doing the deuces to Tyreek Hill because they're so daggum confident, right? To be able to do all that stuff. So that was my first time. My second time was Todd Bowles, and I know he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL, but he showed that you can rush 4. Okay, you got to have the dudes. We talked about that. You got to have the guys and the personnel to be able to do it. But Georgia, I believe, does, or at least can recruit it as such, and will in the future have a dominant defensive line and a really pass rush heavy defensive line. They're going to get some dudes. They already got some dudes in that 2022 class. Darius Smith, Donovan Westmoreland, Tyree West can get after the passer. Them ain't the only boys they getting in 2022 that are really, really good on the defensive line, okay? They're going to get some more. They're going to get some really good ones too, okay? So they're going to be able to do that and get after it with 4. Can they decide and commit to playing zone behind that, which I think they need to, at least this year. And I know, again, he's a man-to-man guy, but it's about being adaptable. That's what Bowles showed us last night. All right, now, this last discussion, I kind of got into it. I didn't get into it, but Dan Kiley over there, and I believe Kiley's how you pronounce that. We got a phone call. We'll take it right now, actually. All right, 770, you are on the air. How are you?
How's it going, Brooks?
Oh, my boy, SSL with the glorious return to Nothing But Rants. I hope you got one stored up for me, buddy. What do you got?
Not so much of a rant, but you briefly mentioned the idea of being adaptable on defense. Tampa Bay did that this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to forget. Tampa Bay and Kansas City have already played this year. Even before the Super Bowl, they'd already played. In Week 12, at the end of the first quarter, Kansas City was up 17-0 on Tampa Bay.
Yep.
Want to know what the point differential has been since then?
Let's see. So
55-16.
There you go, 55-16. I was about to try to guess, but I appreciate you bringing the raw data up into this joint.
55-16. It wasn't just this game. Tampa Bay had already laid out their blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
They already had it. They flat out dominated at 3 quarters against Kansas City after that.
Mm-hmm.
It was one drive away from Tampa Bay winning that game too?
Yeah, it came down to a 1-score game. That is 100% correct.
So, Tampa Bay proved that they could do this in the first game. They just had a whole game of doing it this time. And you had Patrick Mahomes, good as he is, running for his life back there. It's 100% a testament to the defense. And say what you will about Tom Brady, I think this kind of brings up a really interesting point of where we're at in football, Brooks. Do you remember how many yards that JT passed for against Cincinnati?
Just over, I think it was like 301, wasn't it?
It was almost 400.
Oh,
It was just one or two shy of 400 yards.
it was 398. That's what it was.
You're telling me Tom Brady won the MVP award with 200 yards passing?
Yeah, I mean, some would say he didn't deserve it. First of all, let's just address those people. Quarterback win an award. Okay, the odds, the money line odds of Tampa Bay winning the Super Bowl and Tom Brady winning the Super Bowl MVP were dead even. So it was a foregone conclusion. He wins, he gets it. Now, what I will say is he basically played a borderline flawless football game at SSL. I mean, he was 20 for 27 for just over 200 yards, no turnovers, and 3 touchdowns in the first half. I mean, he played a flawless first half for sure. And then didn't have to do much in the second half. Would you agree?
I would 100% agree, but I think it's also a testament to something else that showed up in this game as well. Tampa Bay had a running game.
Yes, they did.
Fournette came out there and played his you-know-what off for him. He had over 140 yards, all-purpose yards there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but here's the thing, though. I think, obviously, Tom Brady played an absolute crazy game as far as percentages go. But he only had to do what he had to do. He didn't have to go out there and chuck it for 450 yards and 9 touchdowns. His defense played that game about as well as you could ever hope to play a game defensively.
Absolutely. My thing is, SSL, we'll let you keep going, but my thing is, like, if Brady had to go out and throw for 350 last night, I solely believe he would have. I don't think there's anything in that football game that showed me that Kansas City is going to be able to limit Tampa Bay in terms of the passing game. Now, what ended up happening is they ended up getting up early on them, and then it was, let's convert. Okay, let's get first downs. I think they started the game with two punts, and then for about 2.5 quarters didn't punt the football. A lot of that is converting the sticks, right? Getting Tom into 3rd and 4th situations where he can get them to conversions. But what that means is the first 2 downs, you've got to be committed to running the football. Okay, you've got to be committed to handing the ball off, and if you get 3 yards, that's okay. We'll live with 2nd and 7. And then if you get 4 yards again, that's okay. We'll live with 3rd and 3. We have the greatest to do it on 3rd down in prime time situations in terms of Brady.
I would agree with that statement. So, and I mean, I'll hear all these people saying, Tom Brady doesn't deserve the MVP. Who does? Because you can't just give it to everybody on the defense.
No.
That's not how that award works. You can't just go and give it to everybody. They deserve it. They absolutely deserve it. Because I haven't seen anybody shut down Patrick Mahomes or Kansas City as a whole like that in years.
And you can't give it to a coach. And I think 3 guys were tied for a sack or sack and a half in terms of JPB, Shaq Barrett, and Vita Vea. So who do you really give it to defensive line-wise? Yeah, I mean, it's a tough discussion. But SSL, before I let you go, the Kidney Foundation, it's totally slipped my mind. Can you tell people where they need to go and run and donate to something that means, is close to your heart, my man?
Yeah, so it's www.kidney.org.
Okay.
So as some of you guys know, I lost my mom last week. She was a double kidney failure survivor, and the Kidney Foundation meant a lot to her in her lifetime. So, yeah, if any of you guys feel at all, you don't feel like you have to. I'm not saying anything like that. Just if you feel like you want to, please donate to them, help them out, because they can always use more help with that. And
it's www.kidney.org, correct, Andrew?
Yes, sir.
All right, we will put that in the show links. Y'all please run and donate. Andrew, bro, it's honestly, it's great having you back in and around the community. I'm sorry for your loss, but I know from discussions you and I have had, your mom is a hell of a fighter, and I see that a lot in you, bro. I appreciate having you back on, my man.
Appreciate it, my man.
See you, brother. Yeah, we took some kind of unspoken prayer requests for Andrew, better yet known as SSL, a couple weeks back. Y'all run and donate to that kidney organization, www.kidney.org. A lot of people out here in this world are in need of a kidney. My mom being one of them. She suffers from fibrocystic kidney disease. So somewhere down the road, she'll need one as well. So yeah, near and dear to both of our hearts. I didn't mean to put him on the spot like that, but it had slipped my mind completely, and I would have stumbled out on all of it. So if y'all would, please support us and support the community by running to www.kidney.org. And again, it will be in the updated show notes at the end of the show. So we appreciate all. The phone lines are open for the OGs. If y'all want to get in, y'all should know the phone number by now. If not, I'll have Lord of the Dings put it in the Discord channel. All right, on to our final discussion of the night. It is what I like to call the go-to-goats argument, right? And, you know, if you've really, really been with me for a long, long time in my media career, I used to have this, oh man, this is funny to answer, funny to talk about. I used to have this like real, and I'm embarrassed to even say the name. It was a podcast called Let Me Say Something. Not let me, Lemme, say something. Don't look it up, I've already deleted it. First of all, stupidest name ever for a podcast. Secondly, I was trying to incorporate my buddies. And to be honest with you, it was basically my attempts at running a Dan Le Batard style show. You know, I was playing straight man. I had a buddy of mine who was kind of playing goofy Stugatz and like being a butthole all the time and just off the cuff doing whatever. Now, I tell you that to tell you this. We ran a Goat of Goats, tournament, right? It was during March Madness. We ran I think it was 36 player led bracket where we allowed the fans on social media to vote the winners of each round, okay? And I think it came down to Brady versus MJ at the very end, and MJ edged him out. Now, this was 2 years ago, okay? This was before all of what's been going on the last, 24 months around Brady. So the discussion's back open. Is he the greatest athlete of all time? Is he the greatest athlete of all time? Now, we all know he's the greatest football player of all time. It's about, has he jumped into that upper echelon of greatest ever to ever do team sports? And there is a disclaimer to this, okay? A very staunch and very important disclaimer. And that disclaimer is, I'm not defining the greatest athlete by who runs the fastest, who jumps the highest, who is the biggest physical specimen, right? It's not what I'm defining it about. Because if that's what we're defining about or defining it as, LeBron James would be the greatest athlete of all time. We know that. Okay, 6'8", 260 pounds, 46-inch vertical, whatever the heck it is. In high school was a 4.4 runner at 6'8". Like the greatest athlete in terms of runs fast, jumps high, is strong and powerful, and is big. It's LeBron James. Now, the definition that we are using tonight, the definition that is applicable to this discussion, is actually the definition that Webster's dictionary uses, which is this, and I quote, a person who is proficient in sports. And I'm going to go on and tell you, you ain't going to find a more proficient career in team-oriented sports than Tom Brady. You're just not. And let's run the tail of the tape right now, okay? Look, let's just give you the raw stats, the rundown. 7-time champion, 5-time Super Bowl MVP, 3-time MVP of the league, 14-time Pro Bowler, led the league in passing yards 3 times, led the league in touchdowns 4 times. He will have the most career yards passing in the history of the game after next season because we all expect Drew Brees to retire if he hadn't already. Drew Brees is like 400 yards ahead of him. He's going to catch him and pass him and put a stamp on that thing to where it'll look like it's never going to be broken. Just like he's already got with the touchdowns record. He's already 15 ahead, I believe, of Drew Brees in terms of all-time touchdowns passing. So not only is he the greatest winner at the quarterback position, you could make a very, very solid argument that in terms of statistical production, because he's literally got them, he's got most yards ever and most touchdowns ever, okay? It's there. In terms of statistical production, he's the greatest of all time. And winning, he's the greatest of all time. And really is not even close. Now, let's put some context into it. This dude's won a Super Bowl in 3 different decades. 3 different decades. Think about that. I'm not even 3 decades old, I don't believe. This dude's won a Super Bowl in 3 different decades. Okay? Absolutely incredible. And he's done it with 2 different franchises. We checked that box last night. Done it with 2 different franchises. And he's played with how many Hall of Fame targets? I mean, seriously. He got a season of Randy Moss. He got all of Gronk's career. So Gronk's the greatest weapon he's ever played with in an extended period of time, and you can make the argument Gronk's the best tight end ever. So we'll give you that one. The season with Moss, what did he do? He broke every single passing record there ever was. It was later broken by Peyton Manning, but that's beside the point. And maybe Mike Evans. He's got a year with Mike Evans, but we don't know if Mike Evans is going to eventually be a Hall of Famer. He's on track to do so. He's not a Hall of Famer as is. He's not a Hall of Famer as it currently sits. He might be down the road. But when you look at Super Bowl in 3 different decades, 2 different franchises, won a title with, and hadn't really, for the most part, had a lot of help. Now, he got a lot of help this year, but a lot of that was part of him. Now, so who goes into this GOAT of GOATs discussion? What athletes would even connote GOAT of GOATs? What athletes can even get their foot into this door, even walk into the meeting room and sit down and give their presentation on the clicker? Who can even make the PowerPoint presentation? Well, I've got a list of 5 guys, okay? MJ. Now, you know I'm a LeBron homer, so we got to put LeBron in this conversation, okay? Wayne Gretzky, Hank Aaron, and Jerry Rice. Those are my 5 guys. Team sports only, okay? So Michael Phelps, out of here, okay? Roger Federer, we'll go ahead and cross that one now. Roger Federer, you ever heard of Rafael Nadal? Djokovic? Okay, those dudes have combined for 37 Grand Slams. So don't even bring me Federer, even though we're not talking about, individual athletes. We're just talking about team-oriented guys. But Federer's not even in the discussion. So if you're in my mentions talking Federer, A, stop watching tennis. B, get out of my mentions. So those are my 5 guys. MJ, LeBron, Gretzky, Hank Aaron, and Jerry Rice. Okay, let's go through each one of them and compare them to Brady, just real briefly. Now, sure, MJ is the, greatest in his sport for a 10-year span, or he was. He dominated, right? Dominated for probably 10 years. We'll call it 10 years. Because the 2 years before he actually won a title and was getting bounced in the first round, he was still scoring about 37 points a game, okay? He was hands down the best scorer in the game, most feared player, probably best player in basketball at those first 2 years. Went on a 6-year run, spread out over 7 years because he took, 8 years because he took, 2 years off basically. Came back halfway through a year after playing baseball and then finished out, I think, a 13th and 14th year up there with Washington. So for 10 years, yeah, he was dominant. Best player in the NBA. Far. Okay, great. Bar none. But, Brady's never had a first-round exit. Ever. Never. First of all, this year was his first time, I believe, ever even playing or one of the first times ever even playing in the first round. He almost always gets first-round buys because he's winning 12 games, winning his division. So the idea of a first-round loss in the playoffs is just absolutely foreign to the likes of Tom Brady. So that one's out of the discussion. MJ had 3 of those. 3 first-round exits. People don't like to tell you about that, right? Because Jordan's this holy ghost. They don't like to talk about the 3 times he was bounced in the first round. Okay, they don't like to talk about how he never beat Larry Bird. They don't like to talk about how he never beat the Pistons. Okay, they don't like to talk about that because they always like to talk about how great Michael is. But the fact of the matter is, there's some hiccups on the resume if you look deep enough. MJ was statistically great, but he doesn't hold a single scoring record in the NBA now. LeBron's got points. Okay, he has literally. If you go look through the record books, there's very few Michael Jordan records that aren't individual awards. Yeah, he won a dozen Defensive Player of the Year awards or whatever. He's got all the trophies in the world, but if you want to talk about a statistical argument, he doesn't hold weight with a guy like Brady because the longevity of the career wasn't there. MJ tried his own Tampa Bay experiment. He tried it. You ever heard of the Washington Wizards in 2001 and 2002 with Michael Jordan? Well, I'll tell you a little bit about them. They went 37-45 both seasons. Didn't make the playoffs. 37-45. Not really a good Tampa Bay experiment, right? Didn't really land it there. The greatness wasn't really transcendent, right? It didn't really transfer from one to the other. And people say, well, Brooks, Michael took a few years off. Don't care. He was 38 and 39 years old during that time. We're talking about a 43-year-old dude. A 43-year-old dude right now. That's what we're talking about. So take that one out. And MJ never won without Scottie and Phil, ever. Never won without Scottie and Phil. Brady checked that box this year. So I think he's got MJ. I absolutely think he's got MJ. Now, let's go to LeBron. And I know we're crossing over past, we're crossing over sports, don't care. It's an argument, and it's to be had because I think there's some categories that we can compare it to, some situations that we can compare it to. LeBron is on par statistically and longevity-wise with Brady, 100%. He's there. But he hasn't been the winner that Brady has. I know he's been to 9 or 10 NBA Finals, he's only won 5 of them. So that one, done. If he can't beat MJ, 4. If he can't beat MJ in that discussion, he's not beating Brady in this discussion. And everybody ate on LeBron's watch. Everybody eats on LeBron's watch. Steph, KD, Duncan, Kawhi, Kobe, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Dirk Nowitzki. Everybody ate on LeBron's watch. Ain't too many people eating on Tom Brady's watch. Aaron Rodgers, 1 title. Drew Brees, 1 title. Peyton Manning, 2 titles. Okay? Ain't a whole lot of people eating on Tom Brady's watch. Tom Brady doing all the eating. Okay? So that kind of gets done. So, and again, the same argument the old heads give me when it comes to MJ and LeBron, it's the same argument here for Tom Brady. So LeBron, thrown out. Love you, dude. Love you, Bron. Gone. Out of the discussion. Now, Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky, I believe, does hold weight here. He's about the only one in this room that I think really can stack up next to Tom Brady, and here's why. Gretzky has every scoring record you could ever imagine in hockey. Scoring records that his points record might not ever get broken. Like Ovechkin's got to play, I think, 5 or 6 more years at a peak level to even sniff Wayne Gretzky skates, like to even get close to him. So he's got the individual success. Gretzky won 4 Stanley Cups. Something that was kind of shocking to me. We never really talked about him as a great winner, but he was. I mean, when he showed up, your team was automatically in contention for a Stanley Cup final. And they won 4 of them during his time. 2 in Ottawa, I believe, and 2 in LA. So pretty good career in terms of team success. And he's the only one here, again, only one in this discussion that holds weight in terms of Brady, in terms of sheer dominance. Sheer dominance, like was the best player for a long time and was considered the best player for a long time. And he led the league in scoring 10 times out of his 23-year career. So the longevity's there as well. He also won with 2 franchises, so he checks that box. Longevity, sheer dominance, record book statistically, champion, 4-time champion. Gretzky's in this boat, okay? Of all these people we're going to talk about tonight, if you want to get my mentions and mention the guy's name, it's Gretzky. I think you have a legitimate argument there. Now, Hank Aaron, for my money, is the best baseball player of all time in terms of individual success. And we don't really gauge team success as much in baseball as we do. You know, if you sat down and said, who's the better player, Hank Aaron or Derek Jeter, everybody, and they should, say Hank Aaron they will say Hank Aaron is the best player, even though Jeter won however many titles, 4 or 5 with the Yankees. So Hank Aaron, to me, is the best baseball player in this discussion. 755 home runs, the true home run champion, home run king, right? And, you know, one of the more impressive individual careers in all of sports. Not a lot of team success, though. Won a World Series title in 1957, which was his 2nd year in the league, maybe 3rd year in the league. Didn't really sniff it ever again after that. So you can't really put him in the discussion in terms of, you know, proficiency, right? His team winning. It is a team sport. These are team athletes, team sport athletes. So the last guy is our only football guy on the list. The only football guy that I think is even in this discussion because Tom Brady has quite literally lapped all of his quarterbacks. I mean, you could stack Brady's career up after 35 and it's like, well, he won 3 titles. That's more than everybody else, basically, except for Bradshaw and Montana. So where do you really go from there? And his statistical stats during the last part of his year is still Hall of Fame worthy. So quarterback-wise, he's lapped everybody. Now, the football player that I believe we can introduce into this conversation is Jerry Rice. And for the young people out there, I don't think y'all realize how good Jerry Rice was. I really don't. And you just need to go look at not only the history books, but the raw data books, right? Like the raw statistics. This dude has, again, lapped people, 100% lapped people. He's a 3-time Super Bowl champion, 1-time Super Bowl MVP in Super Bowl 23. He's the all-time leader in touchdown receptions at 197. Everybody and their mama knows how great Randy Moss was. Everybody and their mama says how great Randy Moss is as a football player. Randy Moss has 41 fewer touchdown receptions than Jerry Rice. 41. Let's say he had one season where he had 20 touchdown receptions, broke the NFL record. He has to have 2 more of those to even catch up, right? To even catch up. So, not to mention Jerry Rice was playing in a completely different era. They might have thrown the ball 20 times a game. Maybe. Even when Montana is their quarterback, they were still a West Coast offense, a run-based offense. So, the statistical impressiveness of Jerry Rice's career and the longevity of it, he's in here. He's, again, hands down the best wide receiver ever, and it's not even particularly close. You can't bring me anybody that even sniffs his, jockstrap in terms of wide receivers. Might bring me some skilled guys, but I've got better skilled quarterbacks than Tom Brady. I don't have better quarterbacks than Tom Brady. So I tell all of you this to tell you that, in terms of longevity, team success, winning in multiple franchises, being the system for a lot of your franchise, like most of your career, being the ultimate champion, 7 titles. 7 titles. The Pittsburgh Steelers are one of the most historic organizations in all of football. They have 6. One dude's got 7. Nobody's even close to him. Nobody's even close to him. He is the greatest athlete of all time. And I shouldn't say nobody's close to him because I told you, I think Wayne Gretzky is close to him. So that's that, man. I mean, if he retired tomorrow, which I don't think he is, that's even the crazier part. He's going to play for God knows how long. He might die on a football field. I know it sounds grotesque, but he might literally die on a football field just because he doesn't want to retire. And he shouldn't retire because I don't know if y'all watched, but I watched. That ball is still spinning, folks. It is still jumping off of his hands. And if we're going to tie it into a Georgia topic to end the show tonight, one guy has played for 23 years and is absolutely fundamentally flawless. Flawless. Doesn't have the biggest, best arm talent, arm strength in the world, but he never misses. He hardly ever misses. If he misses, it's on purpose. It's a throwaway, right? He's been perfect for 23 years because his fundamentals are perfect. He has a mechanical coach, a guy he pays thousands and thousands of dollars to take care of his mechanics, his throwing motion. They data track all of it. Georgia's quarterback isn't like extremely dedicated to perfect fundamentals, is he? And you see there are some inconsistencies in his game. It's the reality of it. Now, he makes throws that even Tom can't in terms of JT Daniels, but he makes mistakes that Tom never would, never has, never will. So there you go. Great show tonight, I thought. We tried out some new things. If you noticed, no microphone, right? Where's the microphone? Don't know. Hope the audio sounded good. I hope it did, Lord of the Dings. We're out. Tomorrow, I'm going to bring you a player breakdown. Haven't decided what it is. Folks in the Patreon account, if you haven't signed up, please do. Patreon.com/Brooks Austin. Sign up over there. We got a great community going. Guys in the Discord channel, I'm going to hang out in that lounge for about 10 to 15 minutes. Can't hang out long, but come chat with me, and we'll decide what we're going to cover tomorrow in terms of what player. With that being said, Lord of the Dings, hit the button. We're out of here, guys.